HBCU arbiter of truth himself, none other than Bishop Campbell. How you doing there, Bishop Campbell?
Coach, Rocky, you know, like I say, you know, you got to have the three musketeers here. So the good thing is FAMU is not so much in the news today. You know what I mean? So we can get down and just talk about some college football, HBCU football, talk a little basketball, you know. I can talk about, I went out to Vegas to see New Edition, you know what I'm saying, for all of my Gen X folks out there.
Oh, man.
Had a good time. You know, y'all didn't know I was a 7th member of New Edition. So, you know, had to give them a little something out there and stuff like that. So, yeah, man, I'm happy to be here. And once again, we're going to, give folks a good show tonight.
Yeah, definitely, man. You know, we kind of missed out, man. My phone been ringing and people, man, where y'all at? Where y'all at? I said, we coming. I took one out of Dion's book. We coming. You know, so in this year, we're going to put it on the road sometimes, and we're going to start out by, go ahead and tell them, Rocky, where we're going to start out at.
So I'll tell you what, we made big plans already. We're going to do the first HBCU Coaches Corner on the road, and we will be in the great state of Alabama, in the wonderful city of Montgomery, living lavish on the campus of Alabama State University during the spring game. We're going to go out there and have a visit. We're going to do a live show, and we're going to report back what we see. We're going to get a lot of good footage. And like I say, we're going to take in the wonderful, luxurious, palatial city of Montgomery, Alabama.
You know, one thing about it, too, you know, they got one of the top quarterbacks coming out of the SWAC in Andrew Body. And so we'll get a chance to see him in the spring game, get a chance to talk to Coach Eddie Robinson, Coach James Williams, and get to see this beautiful city of Montgomery. And one thing about Alabama State that people probably don't know, they got I'm going to say it. They got the best football facility in 1AA football. 1AA football, locker room, beautiful, sweet boxes. It sits right there off the highway, Rocky. And man, where you can actually be in the game and see the highway. And man, it's just a beautiful facility and and a beautiful campus.
You know, I can't wait to this will be my first time in Montgomery, Alabama when I make it there on April I think I will arrive on the 5th, and we will be there through 6 and pending what nighttime activity we can figure out after the game. But again, that's just a brief synopsis of our itinerary. But I would like to depend on the HBCU historian I know he's been to Montgomery, and what can I expect when I go to Montgomery, Alabama, also known as the Gump? I know what I won't do. I will not be getting on any ferry rides. I will not be doing that.
Not going to do the ferry rides? How about that? They got VIP for us down there. Now, Montgomery, listen. I see Mama Body. I got my Andrew Body sweatshirt on. This was supposed to be saying Andrew Body FAMU, but they had to change the word Andrew Body to Alabama State. But I wore that because I knew we were going to talk about that. Now, Montgomery is a very historical city for civil rights. A very historical city. It is a lot of beautiful black people down, and they got some of the best soul food in the South. So there's a couple of places that we might be able to hit.
We definitely gonna get over there. I still got a home there. I own a home there in Alabama, and lived there for 4 years. And it's a beautiful place. The people there are beautiful. Can't say enough about the fan base, man. The fan base is they show up and show out. And like you said, it's a city of a lot of history. Maybe when we get some time, we can go down to the bridge right there in Selma. We can go over there to the Rosa Parks Museum, where they actually serve soul food. There's another historical part over there. So, man, we gonna get around. Then I got a friend named Reggie Miller. He owns the #1 cigar bar in the city, and we also have a time that we're gonna set up and maybe do part of the show over there, maybe the after or the before.
Hey man,
that sounds good.
Hey, Coach, I'm excited. I'm excited for two reasons. One, I'm excited to be on another HBCU campus for sure. But I must say, I'm also excited to see Andrew Body in that Alabama State uniform and see what the Alabama State team looks like. Get a kind of like a sneak peek before the season, because this is something that I've thought long and hard about. I've thought long and hard about this. Considering everything that has happened in the SWAC in a very tumultuous offseason where a lot of leadership has changed in the SWAC, when you really sit down and think about what to expect this upcoming season, I really see Alabama State as the favorite going into this SWAC season. Under normal circumstances, considering what FAMU has returning, I would say, well, maybe it's FAMU. But considering all of the turnover that they've had in key positions on their coaching staff, I have to then look at the consistency that they've had at Alabama State, along with the addition of the dynamic quarterback, Andrew Body. I have to say that Alabama State right now has the edge going into fall camp. If there's no injuries or anything like that, everything stays packed coming out of spring camp, I expect those guys to be the favorite. What do you guys think about that?
Well, they still got D.D. Davis over there as well. They full of athletes. One of the biggest problems they had last year was scoring, especially down in the red zone. And I think Coach Robinson, had to make some choices. And I think they were good choices. That he changed over offensive coordinator and really revamped the whole offensive staff. And, my little birdies, flying, let me know, Bishop, they're going to be running the ball a little bit. And, of course, we're going to be able to come down and see that. And I always tell them great defense and run game. Hey, man, that's championship. And so I'm excited about them. I'm excited about seeing Body in a different uniform and being taught by a different coach. And I'm excited. His family is excited. And I know the kid, it's kind of like a redemption for him. He's been the guy. But as you know, Rocky and Mr. Campbell, a quarterback is judged off of wins and losses. And he don't have many at all. So it's like the girl the beautiful girl that you thought you took home, and by the time when y'all get on, she don't took her leg off, don't took a wig off, she ain't got no fingers. You be like, man, what? So I'm excited about coming in this season, man, and looking at him do his thing.
Well, you know what they say: to beat the champ, you got to beat the champ. So Florida A&M is still the HBCU national champ. And I'm going to tell you something. I like Andrew at Alabama State. I think that's going to be exciting. But I want to say something about the two teams that's going to be fighting with them. Jackson State is returning their quarterback. So that guy is going to be there. They got something to say. And you got to understand something. Depending on either junior or our transfer quarterback who played at a group of 5 and started, okay, who started at a group of 5 level. So we're not going to be short on quarterbacks. And like I said, I think our defense is going to be stout. So like I said, man, you know what's so exciting about this? This is the time we get to talk about this. This is the time that everybody has not lost a game. Everybody's thinking they're going to be SWAC champions. But there's only going to be one SWAC champion. But, that'll be down in Tallahassee, Florida once again. So we already know that. We already know that. See, Coach even had to cut off because he knew I was telling the truth. So he already knew it.
well, again, considering everything that happened over at FAMU, I have to ask you this question. What are your prospects about this upcoming season, considering everything that's happened? Everything is kind of settled in now. You guys are probably, 2 months with your new head coach after having what I would consider considerable amount of turmoil considering you guys were coming off a national championship, right? Things have kind of probably settled in. And what is your expectations coming in for the next season?
Well, that's the great thing about it. I think that's why Coach Cozy is the person for a job. He settled the ship. Most of the players are still there. We got a couple of guys, which are grad, players that want to see their option, and that's any school. You know what I mean? But you got to understand something. If you got 3 or 4 kids out of almost 100 up and down the lineup that are still there, so we got a good core. We got an excellent core of players that know what it is to be a champion. I think this team is excited because, also, too, they want to prove that they can win this championship. So that's another thing, too. They got a chip on their shoulder because everybody's saying Coach Simmons is gone and it took so long to get a coach. But these players want to win a championship. So that gives them an additional motivation. So like I said, again, I'm excited. Again, we play Alabama State on their homecoming. That's going to be a big game. That is going to be a big game. So that's going to be super exciting. And this is what I love about the SWAC when we've added these teams. Like I say, FAMU is here now. Again, Alabama State, Jackson State, Southern, Grambling, those name brand teams are all looking forward to having a great season. So I'm super excited. Alcorn, like I say, could be coming out. So I am super, super excited. But no, I think FAMU is not going to sit up there and be worried about who's the quarterback on the other teams. I think FAMU is going to be FAMU. And that's what's going to have to happen. They're going to play great defense, and I think our offense is going to be dynamite, to be honest with you. Because I think our quarterback room is going to be really dynamic.
So are you expecting similar outcomes as the previous season?
Yeah, listen, I'm going to tell you something. Again, we don't lose and brag. So we got 2 road games. We got to go to Alabama State, and we got to go to Jackson State for the vet. That's going to determine the season. That's going to determine the season. And again, we have a quarterback that played at Group of 5 that started, that has extensive starting experience. So we're not having a quarterback that, has never been behind center. So I think people are really underestimating that. And, so like I said, we'll see. Our spring game is 1 week right after Alabama State. So, I'll be, I don't think I'm going to make, I got a work commitment, but I think what I'm going to do is, definitely be watching from where I'm at. And then we'll see what happens. But no, I think FAMU's in good shape because, again, we brought in a lot of kids. And I'll tell you another thing, too. I think FAMU's going to bring in some additional kids, after all these spring practices in. I think we got a whole another wave of kids that's coming.
Well, here, and they play Alabama State in game what now? 2, 3?
No, we play Alabama State, I want to say sometime in mid-September. So that's got to be the 5th, 6th game at least.
The 5th game. It'll be the 5th. It'll be the 5th game for. It'll be the 5th game for Alabama State, I believe.
Okay, and
remember, we're playing in the MEAC SWAC Challenge.
Now, always look at this as well. You got a new coach, no matter what. It all depends on him. Yeah. If he's coming in there and he's trying to clean the ship and wrong all the stuff he's seen and right all the stuff that he's seen was wrong and make a change, you can see a different type. And usually a team start getting better that second game. You'll see who Florida A&M when they play the second football game there.
And we play South Carolina State in Tallahassee on Labor Day weekend.
That's gonna be a good show there. Because coach at South Carolina State, man, he getting them ready now. They ain't gonna be the South Carolina State of old. So that should be a really good football game.
Hey, Coach,
maybe we might need to make that one.
Hey, Coach Cole, I have a question for you. Can you remember in your Rolodex of memories a situation where a team, an HBCU team, won a national championship and had as much turnover at the leadership as FAMU? We're talking about the head coach, we're talking about the play caller, and we're also talking about the defensive coordinator. Can you remember a championship team that had that much turnover the next year after a championship? And can you remember what their outcome was, if they did have that, if you remember somebody with that championship?
I think North Carolina A&T, when Broadway retired and Sam Washington took over. And, you know, they had a great showing against Alcorn State that year. And then after that year, they end up coming back, you know, back-to-back national champions. Anything that's later than that, you know, you really hadn't seen. You know, nobody end up winning it back-to-back. You know, Alcorn, you know, when Coach was there, he had a good team, but when Fred took over, it kind of fell off a little bit. So it's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough on Florida A&M.
So you're saying North Carolina A&T had a situation where a coach took over after a championship season, and you say he went to the championship back-to-back years?
Yes, he did.
With the new head coach?
And he won the national title.
Okay, all right.
Sam Washington.
So I mean, that's you know, that's good.
It's doable. It's doable.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, I think the edge that Florida A&M has in this particular situation is, in my opinion, they still, regardless of the coaching situation, they have the best collection of talent, in my opinion, in the SWAC, hands down. And so, you know, I'm looking forward to see what the outcome is going to be.
No, I think that, you know, again, what Coach just said about North Carolina A&T, again, they had a system, and also that was a team-led team. You know, the players were bought in. They knew the system. They wanted Sam Washington to be the coach. Again, they were really, really deep. So, again, I think with Coach Cozy, he's been there. The players wanted him. I think they're really excited to play for him. So, again, I think this is just going to be one of those ones. Again, the game, FAMU's going to have to win this on the road. Like I said, that game in Jackson is going to be a big game. That game in Alabama State is going to be a big game. And both of those teams are ready to be gunning for them. So, absolutely.
Now, Coach Campbell, you can share this with us in our support out there, because the picking a new coach went through so much turmoil and took so much time. And I, you know, again, we hearing different things, and you can correct us, that you guys kind of lost some guys that was transferring there, decided to go somewhere else, and some of the guys didn't like what's going on and left. You know, maybe he filled the bucket up with better players, but they had some discrepancy going on there.
Well, the high-end guys, you know, you had the kid from Clemson. He went to Virginia, Michigan State. But overall, we didn't lose a bunch of guys. We didn't. We didn't have a mass exit of 20, 30 players in the portal. Because even now, and these guys are still practicing, they're looking at their options. General Hunt, the DN, Thomas that came from LSU, the offensive lineman. Again, they're looking at their options. But they're still working out. They're still practicing. We'll see what happens. So, but overall, we didn't lose a bunch of players.
Gotcha.
So
who is I'm sorry. Who is now I'm gonna say this, Cameron. When I stayed with Rocky, I told Rocky all season I wasn't impressed with Florida A&M's run. They beat everybody. Don't get me wrong. They beat everybody. But it was times, you know, it's almost, and I don't want to say this, that the league couldn't overcome when Florida A&M played is worse. They beat teams when they played they worse. And a lot of that, we all can agree, was because of Coach Simmons. And, of course, then the talent to me. I thought Coach Simmons done some things and made those kids play. I don't know. You know, we don't know. I don't know if the league has gotten better with recruiting or not, but they can't play the same way that they played at times. They seem like they played down at those teams' level.
Yeah, I can agree with that. But I mean, but you know what, though? We hear this all the time. There are very few teams, and especially, Coach, you notice in college, that is going to be consistent through 11, 12-game, 13-game season. You're going to have your ups and downs. You're going to play up and down. I've seen the University of Miami when they won their last national championship. They've had some games that they were right there. Boston College, I'll never forget it. It was a great play that Ed Reed did. That game was like 18-17 with all that talent. So you see this happen in college football. But again, what the key is did the other teams get any better? Like you said, did they get any better?
Right.
Because the bottom line is they also had all these other teams had multiple losses. It wasn't like how Jackson State and FAMU were a couple of years. Well, we only had one loss, and Jackson State ran the table. Everybody else had 2, 3, 4 losses.
Well, look here. Let's not forget now the Sonny Boone up there in Jackson, Mississippi. Now they were right there. I heard they made some good choices on some good recruits and got some good transfers in. And you can't count J State out now.
No, listen, but Coach, what did I say? I said we got a 2-game schedule. I'm telling you, Jackson State is going to be sitting there waiting for that game. And especially if everything plays out the way we think it's going to be playing, we should be undefeated in the SWAC coming in that game. And hey, listen, man, it's going to be 40,000 people in that stadium. 100%. 100%.
What y'all think about Prairie View A&M? I mean, they went to the championship.
And I think they'll go right back. I think, Coach, I don't think the West has gotten any better. I think Prairie View is still the class of the West. I think Grambling with a new coach, I think they're going to have to. And Southern, has Southern recruited anybody this year? Have they got any players?
They counting on their coaching staff with Coach Fred McNair. Yeah. I think he's the tight end coach.
Yeah.
Well, I believe Southern is counting on the fact, and this may be a mistake, that they believe that their failures rest solely on who their head coach was, right? They think that's what led them to the outcomes they received, because they haven't tooled up. They didn't tool up their coaching staff, in my opinion. They both coordinators were already on staff, correct?
I don't even know. Have Southern announced the coordinator?
Yeah, they announced. Yeah,
they did.
Yeah,
they look. We'll have to pull that up, Coach. We'll have to pull that up.
Okay, I'll pull it up while I'm talking because I didn't see that.
They announced the coaches. I want to say Totten, but I may be wrong.
Well, look here, I'm gonna have to go spank Totten because he's supposed to call his boy and let him know that he the trigger caller.
And
I'm
again,
gonna text him while we talking.
Again, Southern is depending on the loss of Eric Dooley to improve their fortunes. However, Eric Dooley may end up being the trigger man at Grambling. So what does that do? Huh?
He is officially the trigger man at Grambling.
He's calling the plays at Grambling. So what does that do for and with Eric Dooley at Grambling and him being popular with the coach, with the players, how many of those guys do you think they'll lose at Southern? Because he wasn't announced till after the transfer portal was closed. It'll open again after the spring ball. Do you think Southern will lose any more players that may travel up to Grambling?
One thing about it, guys, that we could say, and we're gonna be getting our resources all year. It's a lot of. You started off, Campbell, Coach. It's a lot of not just changes, but a lot of turmoil, a lot of repeat guys jumping from here to here, and the production ain't going with the changes. Does that make sense, Rocky?
Absolutely. I think
it's like we diving down and not moving up.
Well, what you're saying is something that I think a lot of the fans have said, when they heard that Dooley was on the campus of Grambling. Based on Southern's production on offense, why would you hire this past 2 years, his production at Southern, why would you hire this guy as your offensive coordinator at Grambling? Can you justify that hire considering what Coach Dooley did as the play caller at Southern University and head coach and play caller at Southern University? What warrants him being given this opportunity? Maybe Bishop Campbell can explain this. What warranted Coach Dooley being given an opportunity to be the offensive coordinator at Grambling, considering the production of the Southern offense while he was the head coach and play caller? how do you justify that? Or how does it make sense to you?
Well, you can't, right? Can you guys hear me clearly? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my headset died. I apologize for that. Here's the thing. Who else was he going to choose at that later date? That new Grambling, that knew the lay of the land, that was very popular. So I think sometimes situation dictates who the coaches are that are selected. Because see, once again, when we get to this, why didn't he get to this guy? Why didn't he get this guy? The question, who would be the other guys that he could have selected as offensive coordinator? They had the same pedigree. They had the same knowledge of Grambling. Because I'm going to tell you one thing about, and I tell people this, I love Grambling. I've been down at X81. But to go to Grambling, you got to love Grambling. And you got to understand all the things that come with Grambling. It is in the middle of nowhere. The facilities are not the best in the SWAC, but that G means something. And when you coach down there at Grambling, you're coaching because you want to coach Grambling. So again, if you got other coaches that are looking at options and things like that, maybe they want to coach at Jackson State instead of Grambling. Maybe they want to coach at Southern instead of Grambling. Maybe they want to coach at Florida A&M. So the people at Grambling want to be at Grambling. And I think that has a lot to do with it. So dude wants to be at Grambling. He loves Grambling. Grambling's good to him. So I think that has a lot to do with it.
So you're saying it's a good hire? Is that what you're saying? Because when I look at the stats now, not only did he not produce at Southern offensively, he didn't reduce at Prairie View at the end before he went to Grambling. We see them play Jackson State twice in the SWAC championship, right? And
correct.
It was god awful. Let's just tell it like it is. It was god awful. You had Dion had a plane waiting on him. He had 1 foot on the sideline and 1 foot in a car ready to get to the airport because he knew they had won that game. Did they pass the 50-yard line when he was at Prairie View?
Now, Coach, I believe they did pass the 50 line in that game. I believe so. I was at that game. Yes, they did.
Well, it was god awful. So we'll see though. Everybody start from zero. Everybody start from zero, and we'll go from there. Now, my understanding of talking with Coach Joseph is they're gonna run a segment of LSU's offense. So I don't know exactly what LSU offense. All I know is they got 5 wide receivers in the NFL. So I guess they're gonna be chunking it a little bit.
Well, I want to push back on Mr. Campbell's assessment a bit. To be perfectly honest with you, the coordinator who was still on staff at the time that the previous Coach Jackson was relieved was more productive than Dooley was in the SWAC last year.
No, I never. Wait a minute. I never said that he was productive. I said who were they going to get?
Well, what I'm saying is they could have held on to. I forget the guy's name. Tony something. Was it Tony something? I can't think of the guy's name. Was the Grambling offensive coordinator? But he was pretty productive, and he stayed on staff for a while, even after Mickey was hired. To be honest with you. So anyway,
I think that always. But then I guess, and Coach would know better than this. Sometimes you want to have your guy. Sometimes you want to start fresh. Sometimes you want to have your guy. Now, why did the coach stay? Why didn't Coach Joseph say, "Hey, we want to keep you on"? I don't know. Maybe again goes back to what Coach said. Maybe he's not running the offense that Coach Joseph wants.
Right.
And maybe when he talked to Coach Dooley, interviewed him and said, "Hey, this is what my philosophy is. This is what I want to do." And Coach Dooley said, "Yeah, we can run that. I can call those plays." But again, let me tell you something. This goes back again. I was down at Grambling during those championship runs. You gotta understand something. Devontae Kincaid can make any offensive coordinator look good. Okay, and and I'm gonna say this again, and I'm gonna keep saying this. I've been around the SWAC almost 50 years. Quarterbacks win championships in the SWAC. You show me a good quarterback, I'll show you a SWAC champion. So this is just some quarterbacks struggled. They struggled. You put Devontae Kincaid on that team, they're not going to struggle. So the question is, who is Grambling's quarterback? Is he going to be somebody that's going to be able to make plays?
So again, we talked about the teams in the East. Jackson State has their quarterback that can make plays. Alabama State believes Andrew Bonney can stay healthy and make plays. FAMU believes the kid from FAU or junior can make plays. So that's the thing about it. Do you have a quarterback that can initiate your offense and make plays? That has always been like that in the SWAC. You got a bad quarterback, because see what happens with a bad quarterback in the SWAC, all the other stuff styles compounded, right? You start seeing how good the offensive line is not, the running backs and things like that. A good quarterback covers up a lot of that in the SWAC.
Well, I think what you're saying is half true. Musa, most quarterbacks, like you just said, to take their team, they're going to throw for $3 grand. Musa didn't even throw for that. And his interception to touchdown ratio was horrible. So that kind of shoots that down a little bit, but you are.
But Musa was the best quarterback in the SWAC. See, you act, wait a minute, Coach. Wait. You acting like the SWAC had a bunch of great quarterbacks.
That's what you're saying.
So he was wait a minute, Coach. Hold on, wait a minute. My segment still stands.
Okay.
The SWAC, let's be honest, the SWAC did not have a bunch of great quarterbacks. They didn't. So while Musa might not be to the level what you want to see with a previous quarterback that we can start naming in the SWAC history, but again, was he the best in the conference? He clearly was. He was the best in the conference, and you can't take that away from him.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm gonna say, because I would ask you, tell me what other quarterback was better than Musa.
If the best is the worst, that's I get it. I get it. I can't argue that point.
I don't think we can argue that Musa was the best quarterback or most effective quarterback in the SWAC.
Yeah.
Right. We can't argue that based on any measurement. When you want to talk about passing touchdowns, you want to talk about yardage, you want to talk about team performance. However you measure quarterback play, and you said, and this is by your management, quarterbacks are judged on what, Coach?
Win it.
And by that measure, how was Musa?
Musa, he won a football game. He won football games.
I think Musa lost one game while being quarterback at Jackson State. I mean, at FAMU.
Yeah, we had one conference game. Yeah, one conference game.
Yeah, one conference game.
One conference game.
One conference game.
Ain't no question. Ain't no question. I thought that Coach Simmons did a good job of putting Musa in situations, but we all can agree. And I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it because I was a former head football coach in the conference and everything, but I gotta say it. They can't do nothing to me no more. That just showed the strength of our conference. It showed the strength of our conference. You know, that a kid can play real bad and still come out and win the football game. But, you know, their defense was great as well. Their defense was great as well. So I think they had a great team. You know, I'm going to give Musa that year the best quarterback in the league because it wasn't nobody else. But, of course, you know, Bishop and Rocky, you learning, them other guys that came through here, it ain't even close. It ain't even close. We can't even, if Musa even say I'm in the top 10, we go upside his head.
Well, Coach, I think in defense of Musa, I think, and that's why I think him and Coach Simmons were great together. He did what Coach Simmons needed him to do. He did exactly what Coach Simmons needed him to do. And I think in the end, he's a national champion. So I can't take away anything from that because, again, this is what I go back to say. We had other quarterbacks in SWAC. When they played FAMU and competed against them, they couldn't beat them. And you got to think about the only person that did beat them is a potential top 5 pick, Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
So no matter what anybody else says, you have a quarterback on your team. Your quarterback was opposite this quarterback. Your quarterback did not outperform him. He didn't. And I can look at game after game after game. So again, I don't want to just belabor this point because again, Musa graduated. Musa's going to do great things in his life. But I think, and this is a challenge to everybody. What is your quarterback? So what is your quarterback going to do? Musa's not there anymore, to your point, Coach, right? So it's wide open. It's wide open. So again, is Jackson State quarterback going to make the next step? Is Alabama State quarterback going to make the next step? So that's going to be the question in the East. Is Southern going to figure out who their quarterback is?
Let's look at the quarterbacks. Alabama State has potential to have a different quarterback in hand. Texas Southern would have the same quarterback. Pine Bluff, I think, will have a different one. Grambling would have a different one. I think Southern University is going to go back. Does that guy have 1 year, the one who started in Bethune Bayou Classic? We have to look and see. A&M will have a new quarterback. You know what I mean? Alcorn, they will have a new quarterback. So it's gonna be a wide open field of guys of being in that spot and trying to move their team to the championship.
Well, I will say this about Jackson State's quarterback, Jacobian Morgan. If you just take a snapshot of what, the couple games he played, right? 2 or 3 games he played, and how he performed, right? Had he played 12 games, right? He would have passed for over 3,000 yards, had about 700 yards rushing. That would have been enough to win possibly a SWAC championship or even the MVP as well. So if he stays on pace, if he continues to perform at that level, then he should, he could.
But Rodney, he started against Alabama State. They lost. He started against Alcorn and they lost.
But that's not the point.
But no. The point of he played those games. It's not like he did not play. He actually played.
He was also a freshman, correct?
No, he came from Syracuse.
Oh, okay. All
right, let me give y'all the stats. Musa finished number 1 with 2,800, almost 2,900 yards. All right. He had 22 TDs to 10 interceptions. Next in line was Myers Crawley from Grambling. Then we had Aaron Allen from Alcorn, Quincy Casey from A&M, Jason Brown from Jackson State, Southern's Harold Blood, but we know Blood is the reason why they had to get rid of Dooley, and Trayvon Conley from Prairie View, and of course Jace Wilson from Texas Southern. Well, we're looking at not a real good efficiency level. Musa had 137%. That's not real good at all. He averaged 2,400 a game, but that's not real good at all.
I'm looking at Jacobian Morgan. He went 83. He went 83 for 123. He had a 67.5% completion percentage. Right. He passed for 847 yards. He threw 10 touchdowns and 1 interception. When you look at that kind of production and you extrapolate that over an entire season, right? I don't know exactly how much the kid played, but if you extrapolate that over the entire season, that's a dominant quarterback performance. If you extrapolate that over the entire season.
And that's with North Carolina North Carolina Central.
What is that? No,
I'm looking at Musa's percentage. He completed 57% of his passes.
Oh, yeah.
And he wasn't close to being one of the top. You had one at 60.2, 63.8, 63.6. So number-wise, he could improve. But like as you say, at the end of the day, Mr. Campbell, don't be so upset. He won a national championship. So you can't take that away from him.
All right, guys, let's go. Let's get into our headline topic of the evening.
Okay.
That's what the people came in here for, our headline topic.
Yes, sir.
And we're going to discuss. Let me bring up the article.
Can I? I'd like to say something before we get going.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to charge up my battery. I'm sorry, I don't have my team here with me.
No problem.
Anyway, I wanted to say this. This is really the reason Rocky, before we even met, and of course I've talked to you about it a long time ago, was the reason why I started this podcast stuff about trying to promote our coaches and reason why that we can't move on. Not only can we not move on of the swag and move out of the swag, we as Black coaches can't even move in the next level. I never really got into the pro part of it because those guys were owned by private people and they wasn't receiving federal money or state money. But these state schools that's receiving federal money in the NCAA in college and federal funds to carry these schools, you know, we need to do something. You know, and a lot of people talk about, and what I'm talking about is the difference between our white counterparts and how they're getting these jobs. And because at the end of the day, it's about economics. How can the product of college football, 75, 72% of African Americans that play the revenue sports. And when we look at the administrative part, not just the head coach, the assistant coach, the secretary, the trainer, the equipment, they're 84%. And that's just in the major sports in football and basketball. Then when you start talking about non-revenue sports, the percentage of Black coaches and white coaches is even lower than that. And what's happening is even in HBCU conferences, the white coaches are taking over our non-revenue sports, bowling, tennis, track. They're taking over those sports. So my question is, why do we get ahead? You know, when you look at Black schools, HBCU schools, and then you look at the staff, and when you see the white coaches on the staff, here's the position. They in all the positions that make most money. They're either an assistant head coach position, offense coordinator position, defense coordinator position, and offensive line coach. We can't even get those positions. So me being a Black college graduate, and I'm like, well, if we can't come back to our own school and be head coaches, and now MEAC and SWAC and the and the SIAC and the CIAA are now reaching out and getting white coaches coming in. Two things wrong with that. One, we're not getting that opportunity to show leadership. And number two, we're not even getting the coordinator's position to be able to apply for a head job, because the first thing they're going to say is we don't have enough experience. So we need to do something. You know, you ask the players and parents, you know, when we could change this tomorrow. If every black player say, you know something, I'm going to go to an HBCU school. Now, first thing people are going to say is, oh, well, the facilities is different. I guarantee you, Mr. Campbell, if all those black players leave and start playing at black schools, where the money going to go? Them facilities. Just like back in the 70s when they really started letting black players get into schools, you know what I mean? Them facilities shot sky high. They shot sky high because they had all the top players in the country. And I'm not advocating that. I know it's no way that's going to happen where all these parents going to say, oh, my kid's going to black school. My thing has always been, we need to go, or in other words, to Washington. That if we're giving all these people state money, federal money, then it's got to be something done to say that, just like affirmative action. And I know we just got rid of that. Didn't we, Mr. Campbell? We just got rid of
a lot of parts of it.
How can you justify? And when we read these numbers off, Rocky, you don't read them off. It's staggering. It don't make sense. Mr. Campbell, it don't make sense, Rocky, that Nebraska, when we had Mickey Joseph on, was the first black coach in the school's history as a head coach of a football program. When you've had them greats like I Am Hip, Jarvis Red Ryan, all these guys, Johnnie Rogers won all these guys, great guys that come out of Nebraska, you don't even have a black coach. never been a coordinator. Black coach, never been a coordinator. So let me get out my soapbox and turn it over. That's why I got into this, to try to promote our black. And Rocky, we have problems doing that, don't we? They don't even want to come out. And that's why we got to let people see the goodness and the greatness of people that we have that's in these positions, that they can move to the next level.
Coach,
Go ahead.
As you talk about this, Coach, this is an issue that is on all levels of college sports. I mean, college athletics.
Yes.
And you know, we're not just talking about on the highest levels at the D1 level. We're talking about at the
it's terrible. It's even worse, Coach, at the lower levels. and here's how they get us. And let me say this. Here's how they get. You see the outline? It says racial and gender. See, we can't get over. We as black people, we can't have our own little aisle. They ain't even fixed our aisle yet. Now we got to keep people with gender. We got to keep with women. We can't even get our aisle straight yet. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm gonna let y'all go.
No. What I was just gonna say is, I listened to a summit talking about diversity in athletic programs that happened about 2 years ago, and one of the white ADs that was on the panel was saying, he said the real issue is that there are lots of qualified coaches, but when you talk about the pipeline to like the head coach, the pipeline to like the coordinator, the pipeline to those positions, the path that is traveled, that's usually not the track. And this is his words. That's not the track that minority coaches take. So let me give you an example. Usually the track is that you're on the offensive side, you're a quarterback coach, and then you go from quarterback coach to offensive coordinator to head coach. On the defensive side, you go be defensive coordinator, you have a good defense, you become a head coach. Those positions, when you talk about defense coordinator and quarterbacks coach and OCs, they are disproportionately held by white coaches. So what that ends up happening is the pipeline to head coach is filled with a bunch of the track to being a head coach is filled with a disproportionate number of white coaches, and therefore the black coaches end up taking recruiting coordinator positions, things like that don't running backs coach, wide receiver coach, that doesn't traditionally translate to receiving a head coaching position. And I'll let Mr. Campbell, respond to that. What do you say about the AD who made that argument about the track to becoming a head coach is not usually a career track that black coaches or minority coaches take?
Well, this is where we always have this issue, right? Because here's the thing. There's only so many jobs. And let's talk about what coach is talking about. Job to prep you to be a head coach. So you have the MEAC and you have the SWAC. Let's just use that as an example. But then you got guys that are over in the Power 5 side. They're on that track. Are they going to come back and go to HBCUs? Well, we see that argument. A lot of them don't. They want to stay on that side because of the money, the prestige, and all the other things. I mean, and I heard this, and I correct me, my rallies could correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was an interview with Coach Simmons said, well, even though all he had done at FAMU, they still wanted to see the Power 5 coaching on his resume. So these are the things that we have to always fight and go against. You got to understand something, Coach. The HBCUs are old, and all the land grant schools, that is, owe $13 billion. Southern University owed $1 billion. A&T's owe like $2 billion. FAMU's owe $2 billion. Tennessee State, on and on and on. Alcorn, all these schools. So to your point, you have these great facilities, We've been underfunded, and it's just a cascade effect. So guess what? You give FAMU, Southern, and A&T $2 billion. Guess what? They can hire a whole bunch of coaches.
Let me say this, and because I want. Sometimes we ain't on the front line and we miss it. I'm saying, why would a HBCU guy hire a white guy as a head coach?
All right, let me play this.
You just said that Power 5 and they got the money and all that. When do we take responsibility for our own?
All right, well, Coach, let me ask you a question. And you know, I'm totally agreeing, but I want to ask you a question. Should a coach hire the best coach available, or should a coach hire a black coach?
Let me say this. You know and I know. Only 75 or 80% of coaches, 75 and 80% of coaches are losers. So sometimes these athletic directors, they hire people they can control. They don't hire the best guy. Because you got perennial losing programs. Mississippi Valley, perennial loser. You know, Texas Southern, perennial loser. Pine Bluff, bad. So yeah, we should hire the best coach out there. We should, but you know we don't. So my question would be, at least let's start with each other. At least, because they not. You know what I mean? And I don't.
100%.
I don't blame you, because at the end of the day, with them, it ain't about them. They don't make selfish choices. They don't get involved with, oh, I don't like him and you know, he look like this, and they don't make them choices like we make. They go out, they believe in winning. It's about money. It ain't about me. It's about, let's go get the best coach and let's put him on the field. Let's give me what he wants so we can do what? Win. We get more personal in choosing a coach. You know, I mean, we could sit. I know you've seen some choices that we've made as coaches that you was like, man, well, how did that happen? But besides that, I just want to see more black coaches. You know what I mean? That's what I want to see. I want to see more black coordinators. But if we give our jobs away, how do we get the experience? Because that's the first thing they tell you. Oh, well, you ain't got enough experience. I remember I was at University of Cincinnati, right? And I came in, I'm talking to the head coach about my evaluation. He tried to hit me with, you know, if I had to say you was the best coach, wide receiver coach, which, by the way, Coach Campbell, I coached the player of the conference of the year, a kid named Robert Tate. He said, I couldn't say that you were the best wide receiver coach. You know why he said that? Because he knew I came from a black school. I had to let him know, look, I'm a good coach. I might not be the best right now, but damn, I'm up there. You know what I mean? You're not going to say that because I didn't have the background, you know, that you expect that I ain't the best coach. When I coached the player of the year, this kid named Robert Tate. And the thing about it, nobody knew that this coach had this kid had dyslexia. And I used to put him on the board and he would draw things wrong. And I'm like, hey, what's wrong? And then finally I had him tested and found out that was his issue. And we were able to get through that. And he went on to play pro ball and all that good stuff. But I'm just saying that we don't have room to be giving all our jobs away to white coaches. See, and then when you said that, you know what, Jar, that came and hit me? That we think white ice get colder than black ice. And it don't, man. There's some fantastic black coaches out there that have been coaching, and I don't even want to get into the pros. Let's just say in college, that deserve the chance to be coach. Be these coaches, and they're being passed up on because these big donors don't want that. They want to see somebody leading the charge that look like them. What's wrong with us feeling the same way? That's all I'm saying.
Well, Coach, I'm going to agree with that and co-sign that. I think here's where it always, when you talk about HBCU sports compared, see, Power 5 people don't have to worry about this discussion. They don't have to worry about this. They hire their coaches. The nepotism is there. Look at the SEC. What, they've had 5 black coaches in their whole history, but the whole conference is black players. Outstanding black players built that conference. But then what happens to us is now we got to look at the finances. We got to look, because we're not even able to incubate coaches, right? Where we can build them up and they can move next step. See, that's another thing too, because of the finances. We can't even incubate that wide receiver coach and say, okay, I'm going to keep you here, but I'm going to pay you a living wage. So then when my next guy moves up, I'm going to move you to offensive coordinator. I'm going to pay you a living wage. And 2 or 3 years down the line, now you're ready to be the head coach.
Right.
Because again, finances always comes into play. And you know, I see this all the time. Again, it happened to FAMU. We looked at Coach Simmons. And Coach Simmons is making, may not be a running backs coach. And you have people from FAMU scrambling and looking to raise money. Look at Coach Reed. Coach Reed is an outstanding coach, one of the best coaches in America. And you know what people are already saying? Oh, well, she's going to leave Jack State because they're going to pay her more money. Already.
Well, here's what supports me, Rocky. You'll get a kick out of this. And I've said it on this show before. In the last 20 years, every SWAC coach who won the championship is on the block. Is on the shelf. Is on the shelf. Well, they got Coach McNair over there at Southern and Dooley over it, but all of them. And what I'm saying is we don't grow ourselves. We don't give ourselves those offensive coordinator jobs and defensive coordinator's job when we give them to other people. And then what they do, they leave. They leave, and then they never bring nobody with them. That's one thing I can say about Deion Sanders. When he left, he took some SWAC guys with him, which is what it's about, you know. And we can't ever get there unless we take care of our own. I just, it's something about that. I just believe, you know. And then, you know, we talk about experience and all that. Coach, I met some guys, man, that a couple of my friends coach pro ball, where the linebacker coach never even coached college. He jumped straight from high school because he was a son-in-law of somebody's. You know what I'm saying? That's what they do.
Look at Bill Belichick's son. Does he deserve to be the position that he's at? Absolutely not.
No.
That is the biggest form of nepotism that you ever want to see.
Well,
so no, I get it.
I just want to read some numbers off.
Go ahead.
I just want to read this result. 78.6% of chancellors and presidents, 78.6% of directors, athletic directors, 83% of faculty, athletic representatives, 80% of conference commissioners were white. Let me read that again. 78.6, 78.6, 83.6, and 80.0 of conference commissioners were white.
My name is Danny Wilson, and I won $500 on the lunch break with AJ Jones.
BS3 Network, changing the way you watch TV.